What's up, everybody? This is the Red Alert Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chap, with my other host, Cindy Barry. And, we usually keep it very, very close to the vest where Cindy is because you never know where she could be. She could be in Florida. She could be in Michigan. She could be in Vegas. He could be in China, Russia, England, wherever the hell she is, because she's not on camera today, which obviously there is some technical issues that might be happening. But anyway,
It's more fun to say I'm somewhere mysterious and
I
exotic.
like I like the mysteriousness of where you are because people
Yeah.
actually do ask, where was she doing the podcast from? And I go, you'll never know.
I can't tell you. If I tell you, I gotta kill you, right? Isn't that the line?
Exactly. It's like the old Italian mafia trick, like, oh, you really don't want to know. You really don't want to know.
Don't ask questions you don't want
Don't
to
ask
answer.
questions. Don't ask why.
Don't ask me about my business.
Exactly, exactly. Well, today the Red Wings had their season-ending press conference. Now, the players did their season-ending press conference last week. I was shocked to see that Yzerman didn't do his season-ending press conference last week, to be honest. But it seemed like he was a little pissed off today, in terms of the way the season went. And I mean, honestly, like if me and you are being honest, Cindy, no shit, he should be pissed off, especially with the way the players played down the stretch. And obviously, you're gonna get in that tagline of, well, he got the players. Well, yeah, but when you get the players and you put the players in position to succeed, and you go and you get it and you make a trade for Justin Falk for a first round pick and a good prospect, you don't expect them to lay an egg after that. So obviously there is issues that need to be worked out this summer, and Steve Eisen's going to have a tall task because this free agent class is not that great, and he has a couple players that he might need to be like shipped out of here with capital because they're not really worth much, like Michael Rasmussen and whoever the jerseys are on this team. Like Todd McClellan said, I mean, here's one of them. I mean, it is what it is. So there you go. So it just goes into the whole madness of the thing. And Cindy, I know you watched the press conference, but
Yeah.
uh, even just the quick clips or anything like that. But it seemed like his tone to me, like he was really pissed off. Why he definitely should be pissed off the way that that team ended the season. What was your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I watched the whole thing start to finish, and my couple takeaways I had were first off, um, I don't think he was completely convinced that this was a playoff team. They were pleasantly surprised at how things were going. I think he said, like, three quarters through the season, they got to that point, and then at that, when it came to that stage, I think they were third in the standings or something, and he felt, and Steve Eisman said this, that he felt that they weren't as good a team as the record was showing.
Yep.
They weren't quite there, and so, but he wanted to give him a shot, right? I don't think he wanted to be accused of, not coming in at the trade deadline and giving them a chance and deflating them and all this kind of stuff. So he said, "All right, we're in third. We're in the ballpark. Whether or not I think we're there, let's see if we can push us over." And it just didn't happen. But he said he wasn't surprised. So that was one of the key takeaways I had, was that he was not surprised by the fact that they didn't make the playoffs, because I don't think he thought they were there quite yet. But he was kind of doing a Hail Mary pass there at the end during the trade deadline and brought in Falk, and um, and thinking that that might bringing back Perron, and I think what he was looking to bring, the others, which leads to my second takeaway, and I heard this as an overall tone, okay, from both Todd and from Steve. And what I heard was, this team is just too soft. They're just too
Mhm.
soft. They're not
Mhm.
aggressive enough. They're not hard enough, both in terms of the way they play, is not aggressive and hard enough, and also
Mhm.
mental toughness. They
Yep.
were lacking a mental toughness. So I think, the top two of the three things that Todd McClellan wanted to accomplish in training camp, their 3 identified goals, the top 2 had to do with their toughness. And, even when you're physically looking at these 2 guys today, both of them, man, they've just got a visage and a persona. Those are 2 tough guys sitting at that table. Those are
Yep.
2 tough dudes. And the fact of the matter is, I think that they're a bit disgusted that their team and their players are not as tough as they are. And they're
Mm-hmm.
certainly not tough enough to get to the playoffs. And even if they made it there, they're not tough enough to really do some damage there. That's really what I got. It's kind of like, my good friend out there in Vegas, Robert. And Robert, if you're listening, this is a shout out to you. Robert, a lot of you guys actually know him if you listen to the Vegas Matt podcast or watch the Vegas Matt podcast online. Shout out to Vegas Matt and the crew, EJ, John, everybody out there, Matt, of course. But my friend Robert says, if you're scared, call the police. And I feel like that's almost what these guys were saying in the message they were sending to these players. Like, you know what? If you're scared, call the police because we don't have a place for you here. Don't be afraid. You've got to go to the net. You have to be, you cannot be afraid to go charging up the middle. You can't be afraid to take the shots when you got them. You don't hold back. You're kind of balls out, if you will. I mean, and you got to play that way, start to finish. You can't start that way. And then when it really matters, as McClellan said, in the push phase, the 4th phase of the season in his description, you got to pour it on. That's when you really have to push through, and you have to have a mental toughness to do that. And you have to have a willingness and an ability to physically do that. Those were my takeaways, Joe.
Yeah, I had similar takeaways, and I remember verbatim there was a point where Steve Yzerman said, there's a mental toughness aspect that needs to be really developed. And it was interesting because there was a certain player who said the same thing. Moritz Seider said the same thing. And there was an interesting comment from Dylan Larkin at the press conference, which I'm going to play in a moment. But it all goes back to the same thing, Cindy. Like we were talking about this whole entire time. Like when you think about this Detroit Red Wings team, what do you think about? You think about they're a little bit soft. They're not the best. They don't show up when it matters, And what Steve Yzerman said in the press conference, there was a point where he said, I'm trying to get the quote. Um, he said, I expect a lot more. Some of these players had a good season, but I expect more out of others. And he said, you have to learn to be tough. And I thought that was a direct shot at the roster because there is players that, for whatever reason, just aren't tough enough to be, great hockey players. And that's, all the things about, you could sit here all along the lines, but Larkin said something, and I want you to hear this because this is an interesting comment from Dylan Larkin.
Like I said, a team, there's 23 guys and everyone has a role, and every role is important for the team, and someone's going to win the Stanley Cup this year. Those guys are all going to buy into their roles and play the role and play it well. And I think that if you're not going to score, you can't be out there getting scored on.
So you hear Dylan Larkin say that, and it's like, okay, who's the guys that don't score, right? JT Compher comes to mind. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean to JT Compher. I'm not even trying to, yank his chain, but the reality of the situation is he had 27 points or something and like 23 hits. Like, what do you do? Like, honestly, like, what do you do? And when I look
your
at his,
role, right?
and that's exactly what Dylan Larkin's saying.
Yeah.
If you're not going to score, do something. Like, do something. And Seider said the same thing. And I look at the players who didn't score enough, right? Perron just got on the team, but you look at JT Compher, 28 points. Edmondson as a defenseman, 25 points. Okay, I can get that. He was plus 12 over the season. Okay, that's not bad. Casper, 19 points. Rasmussen, 14 points. Mason Appleton, 14 points. I mean, you go along the lines and you're like, geez, man, like, is there anybody that's going to actually do something? And if you're not going to be a good scorer and you're not going to contribute offensively, you got to do it the way that, guys like Darren McCarty and Chris Draper and Kirk Maltby and even going to like the 2008 roster, Dallas Drake and some of those guys where they just fought their ass off. Like they went out there and they made the other team's life a living hell. Like they literally had to go out there and know, oh my God, McCarty's on the other side, or Chris Draper's on the other, Maltby's on the other side. Like there was no let up because these guys can score and they're going to be physical and they're going to be on you. And when you watch the bottom of this roster in terms of Comfort and Appleton, and Appleton really disappointed me, by the way. I thought he'd be a really good physical element. He was terrible, and that's just the way it is. And Rasmussen, you could he could be on Artemis, the spaceship, and I don't care. He can go to the
Yeah.
moon. I really don't care, because the reality of the situation is they weren't good enough. And I thought what Yzerman said today about the not being tough, and he says we need to score. We need to be more harder to team to play against. And when you look at the top two lines, Kane, DeBrincat, Kopp, Larkin, Raymond, whoever was filling in when on the wing of Larkin and Raymond, those lines carried the team. And when things went to shit, it's because things got hard. The game got hard, and those bottom six players didn't do nothing. They didn't do nothing to help the team. They were basically just skating around. And when Todd McClellan said that they were just jerseys, he wasn't bluffing. He wasn't making an excuse. Steve Yzerman literally said, like, I'm not going to be here to blame players. Like, I'm going to take accountability. We're all responsible. Like, he wanted to say, these players freaking suck. Like, I can't imagine a guy like Steve Yzerman looking at this team and going, yeah, this is good. They're good. This is a great process. There's no way he did that. There's no way. Like, I have a feeling the reason he didn't do the press conference when the players did it because he would have been emotional. And he literally said, I had to take a little bit of time off to, recalibrate. And he says he's going to have to take more time off to recalibrate because they want to be non-emotional, and that's the right way to do things. But he's pissed off, and when you saw McClellan today, McClellan looked like he was gonna be just absolutely pissed off to the gills. So just go to show you.
Yeah, here's the thing, Joe. Here's what I think Steve Yzerman would have loved to have said today, but couldn't, because it was written all over his face. All right.
Yes.
If he could have picked one word to describe this team, it starts with a P, ends with a Y, and it's another name for cat.
Oh boy. Oh yeah.
All right. That is what he would have
Yes.
said. You guys are a bunch of, because I think that's exactly what he thinks. I don't think it's a skill problem. And see, look how nicely I said that. I wasn't gonna get all gross. But
it's I'm glad you said it, because if I would have said it, it would have been sexist, and I can't do that. But
right.
But that happens in a locker room, and that Yzerman's,
sure.
and that Yzerman's not going to the team and going, guys, you guys did so great. I'm so proud of you. Like, he's probably like, you guys are a bunch of jackwagons. You guys absolutely make me sick to my stomach. Like, you kind of heard a little bit of it with, Darren McCarty. Like, I think Darren McCarty really does. Like, if you listen to him talk to Red Wings and you just listen to what he says, you could tell he's coming from a measured voice in terms of the way that he thinks is exactly the way those people in the front office think. And when he says something, you kind of listen. So when you hear him say that they don't have a want to win, you kind of listen to it. When you hear Darren McCarty also say, like, if I was in that locker room, I'd be going apeshit. You got to take that verbatim. That Yzerman would definitely do the same. Chris Draper would definitely do the same. And the way Sean Horkoff, the assistant GM, played the game, he would do the same too. So, yeah, like you said, that was a correct terminology.
See, but so you got the point, and I think they all think that, and they mentioned, my brother from another mother today, Darren McCarty. Todd McClellan mentioned that grind line of Maltz and Drapes and Darren McCarty, and when they were talking about that line produced, and they weren't getting production out of their bottom six. And that was a problem. That's something they're going to have to address in the coming months, is they're going to have to address that deficiency, and they know they have it. I think they tried to fix it, but it just it didn't work. It didn't pan out the way they thought. And Steve Yzerman, his Canadian was showing today. His Canada was shown as he said, the organization, and against, by the way, Joe, it was against, not
Against.
against, against. They have to be tough to play against. And that's true. They absolutely have got to be tough to play against. In other words, they need to be afraid of you. When
Mhm.
they came on, and they knew that grind line was coming on the ice, people were afraid. They would thought twice before going after Steve Yzerman, and that's exactly what you want. We're not afraid. Nobody's afraid of us, okay? We weren't scary. We're not afraid, or they're not afraid of us. And to the contrary, we seemed afraid of everybody. I mean, for crying out loud, they called out Dylan Larkin, and I like Dylan. I think Dylan brings a lot of attributes, and it's not that this team isn't skilled. I don't believe that they're not skilled, but they're just not tough, and they don't have the will to get in there and get physical. And so a couple of things, they talked about the fact that this team is going to have to change the way they play. They're going to have to be willing to change. And Steve Yzerman talked about that back in the day, that Scotty Bowman had kind of this come to Jesus moment with these guys, and said, hey, look, you're going to have to change. You're going to have to change the way that you're playing. And even Scotty Bowman had to change the way he coached when it came to the Russian Five. I mean, that's all well documented. So the point is, you've got players that are skilled. They have the capacity. They have the ability. They have to have the will. They have to have the will to win, and they have to have the will to make changes. And those were some of the other points that I felt that they made today. And they called Dylan Larkin out, and they asked Steve, they said, do you expect more out of Dylan Larkin? And he said, yes, I do. Yes, I do expect more from him. He brings a lot. They expect a lot, and they ask a lot of him, but he needs more from Dylan Larkin. And I'll tell you where I think we need to expect more from Dylan Larkin. Let's start with this. Let's start with, we need Dylan Larkin to make some changes. And you can't have a captain going out there leading a team that's tough to play against, that people are afraid of, when every time you get the guy on camera, it looks like he's getting ready to break down in tears. I mean, he's getting ready to cry every time you turn around. And I don't know if that's like who he is, but when he seems very unsure, Dylan Larkin seems to me very unsure and ready to cry all the time. And I get
Mm.
it, he's a sensitive guy, okay? Whatever. But don't be doing that. I mean, when he cried when Tyler Bertuzzi got traded, cried on camera. I mean, come on now. I mean, give me a break. Are you afraid of that guy? You afraid to get on the ice with that guy? Let me tell you something. I've been accused in my line of work of being a scary character, right? Of being someone you're afraid of, right? I've had staff say, "Oh yeah, you're intimidating. We're afraid to talk to you." Are you kidding me? Really? I didn't realize I was like that. But it's just a matter of, you know what? I really don't care, because in my business, let me tell you, the only thing tougher than an NHL playoff game is politics, okay?
Mhm.
You better have some really thick skin. You better be a tough customer, because you're going to have to play a very rough game, and you got to be ready and willing to do that. Maybe it's just been my years and years in the business that's the way that I've kind of developed that. But you know what? This team needs a little bit of that. And Joe, I got an idea. I've got an idea. Tell me what you think of this. I think they need to take this team and put some of these guys in, or bring in one of those like ex special forces guys, or one of those
Oh
guys that
yeah.
has those SEAL
Yep.
training camps. Send them out in the middle of freaking nowhere this summer with one of those teams, and see how tough you can get those guys, because that's what they need.
Here's
Rant
here's
over.
what
Sorry.
here's what I say. The Buffalo Sabres had the best way they got tougher over the summer. You want to hear this? They said that they would drink beers every Friday together. Every Friday. And they developed a brotherhood, a camaraderie, they were tight knit, because they were, doing what they were talking to shit and all that. That's what they got to do. Like this team, if I'm Larkin, like you got to Sider's a tough customer. He likes to throw the body around. Casper even throws the body around. I I got to tell you, there's players, and this is what goes to the whole fruition though. When you talk about this roster, like there's veterans that, let's be honest, they don't do nothing, and I think that's a bad thing to see to the room. And I think this is on Steve Yzerman to do this. You know, JT Confer was brutal this year. I mean, if I have the statistics correct, he had 28 points and 22 hits. I don't know any player in my entire life that if you didn't score, you only had 22 hits. Like Troy Terry had a unique statistic where he didn't throw a hit all year long, but he scored like 30 goals. So I could deal with that. I guess. I mean, I bet you Pat Verbeek is a little bit pissed off about that. But the point remains, I think Steve Yzerman needs to send a message to the room. I think he needs to send a message to the organization, and I think he needs to make an example out of someone, whether it's Rasmussen, whether it's Comfer, Appleton. They got years, the term left on their contract, so he's going to have to make an example of them and trade their ass away and give up capital to trade them away. And it's like, I wanted him gone so bad that I sent him to Vancouver. Like, that sucks, but that's just the way it goes.
It's kind of like when you get in trouble when you're working for one of the alphabet agencies for the United States government, and they end up like stationing you in like Anchorage, Alaska, or something. like that's
Yeah,
how
like
bad we don't want you near us.
You know you messed up when they send you to Anchorage, Alaska. Like, okay, you kind of effed this up really bad. Like, you were in New York and now you're in Anchorage. Wasn't a really big pay upgrade though, but it is what it is. And
Right.
again, the whole thing, and Steve Yzerman talked about, people were speculating that he was going to resign potentially. This is what
He's
said.
on top of everything. He's aware of everything that's going on. I intend to do my job to the best of my ability, to do this job, to address the areas that need to, and intend to see this through.
He's gonna see us through. Like, that's the way it goes. And Chris Ilitch, obviously, what did he think? This is what he thought.
Steve, when was the last time you spoke with Chris Ilitch? What was his message to you? How much urgency, concern does he feel about where you guys are right now?
I spoke with him a few days ago. He and the entire ownership, the Ilitch family, are very disappointed with the way the season played out. He continues to be extremely supportive of what we're trying to do here. And we intend to have further conversations about our team and about our organization in the very near future.
So, obviously, Chris Ilitch cannot be happy. Number one, I know people look at Chris Ilitch and they go, we don't know if he cares. Guys, here's one little secret about millionaires and billionaires. They hate when they lose money. Like, they absolutely hate when they lose money.
100% true.
Chris Ilitch losing a playoff gate money is roughly, just to put it in perspective, just a gate, okay? He's roughly losing $5 to $6 million. Okay, so that's not crazy, because when the Tigers made the playoffs last year and they had those 2 games at Comerica Park, they played in the ALDS or whatever, they made $10 million. That's a bigger stadium, so you would expect maybe $5 million that they're gonna make at LCA over 2 games, maybe 3 games and 4 games. But they don't like losing money, and I don't think Chris Ilitch could sit here and be like, "Oh, this is great, guys! Like, you're doing a great job." Because honestly, Cindy, he looks across the street at Comerica Park, his team, one of his teams. He watches Scott Harris and the Tigers be successful, and he's like, "What are the Red Wings doing?" Like, he has to be thinking it. I mean, he's not stupid. He's not a dummy. I mean, you can't be dummy and run a conglomerate of businesses. Like, it's just the way it is. And I think that the way we think about this in terms of fans, like I hear this notion all the time about Chris Ilitch doesn't want to spend money. The issue is not spending money. Okay, they were up against the cap the last 2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy. They were, and it's not spending the money. It's spending the money on the right players. Like if you spent 500 grand on a guy that gave you 20 goals from the fourth line, no one's bitching. Not one person saying, "Oh, what a cheap ass." No, 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 no. You're gonna be saying, "We're in the playoffs. I don't care. Like, I don't really care." It's like Kevin McGonigal. Like they signed Kevin McGonigal. The Tigers signed this young shortstop to a big deal. You know why they did it? Because they know that he is legit, and they know that he's going to be with them for the future, and they spent the money. And it's up to Steve Yzerman to spend the money on the right players, which he has not done. JT Compher, Rasmussen, Ben Sherratt, guys like that at Mason Appleton. Like, no, it has to go both ways. Yzerman took responsibility for his actions, and I thought that was the most important part because I got to tell you, Cindy, I was prepared for him to say the same old thing that he usually says and says, you know, we got to play this process out. No, because he did speak about that also. Helene St. James actually asked a smart question. Consider the source. And this is what he
I
said.
was just wondering, because it was 7 years this past Sunday since you were named GM. Is this team, or where did you think the team would be at when you took over? I mean, we know that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll let you finish the question.
That there was a lot missing on that team, but now it's 7 years later.
Yep. Every year over the last 7 years, the question is when are you going to make the playoffs? And obviously, I've answered. I'm not sure. I can't give you a timeline. Knowing full well 7 years ago, I knew what I signed up for. I knew what the job, the task at hand was, and so when exactly we are going to be a playoff team, I could never pinpoint that. To sit here today and say, hey, everything's going perfectly according to plan, no. There's a lot of things I'm pleased about within the organization and areas that I'm not happy, disappointed, things that we need to have done better. We sit here today a week after the end of the regular season and see how the season unfolded. I think we're all kind of emotional about this and need to take a little time to analyze it, not forget about some of the positive things that are going on here, and then try to address how we move forward.
You saw McClellan in that clip. He looked like he was about to see red, literally. But Steve Yzerman said what he said, and look, there was some positives. DeBrincat had a 40-plus goal season, 41 goals on a season. Dylan Larkin had 34 goals, which was a career high. Seventh-round pick named Emmett Finney had 30 points. Mo Sider was a legitimate argument to win the Norris. John Gibson was the best goalie in the NHL for 3+ months, and Patrick Kane had 57 points on a season. If I told you all that, you would think they're making the playoffs. Well, the bottom of the roster didn't hold their water, and that's kind of the issue that we're in right now.
Well, and it's interesting because when he says, I had to take a minute, we're all emotional. That was code for I was too pissed to even speak to you. I didn't
Pretty
trust
much, yeah.
myself, to hold it together. I mean, because, even though he said he wasn't surprised, here's the thing. I don't think he was surprised. And I'll tell you, if he would have seen this team give their very best effort all the way to the end, I don't think he would have as much issue with it. But the fact that they essentially gave up and said, and did not do their best all the way through, I don't think he appreciated that because, as he said, he's been in that position before. He's been in that position himself. And I think just the way they ended it, again, it's everything comes to an end, but it's how you end it.
Mhm.
More so even than how it ends. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's what probably disappointed him as much as anything was the way that this team went out, which was an absolute embarrassment, and they acknowledged that. So I think again it goes to the mental toughness, and quite frankly, Jules, what I said on the podcast the last time is I guarantee you some of these guys are already checked out. When they knew they were climbing uphill, they checked out already. They checked out weeks before the season actually ended. And I think Steve knows that, and that's what pisses him off probably more than anything.
I said in the last podcast, and I'll say it again for the people that are just listening to this one. I said when they lost the way they lost against Philly and Ottawa, in March, and then they go to New York and they absolutely get obliterated. They play Minnesota, they fall in another hole, they claw their way back, and then suddenly, they lose on a stupid penalty by Patrick Kane. The way I look at this whole thing, if they just sucked throughout the entire season, I could say they're not good enough. But the way that they lost in the later half of the season, where they didn't even show up to games like Ottawa, Philadelphia, Minnesota for 2+ periods, like it's hard to defend. And I can't, there's no way Steve Yzerman is going to sit here and go, yeah, I think we all have the same sentiment. The reality of the situation is they did not make the playoffs, which is terrible. But the second portion to this is it's the way they missed the playoffs. Like the way they missed the playoffs
100%.
was
100%.
if they
Yeah.
missed the playoffs by 1 point because they lost a heartbreaker in overtime, you would kind of understand it. But because they lost the chance to get to the playoffs basically on their own merit, and even Mickey Redmond said it, I'll give him credit. He said it on the Red Wings broadcast. He said, when you go 1-4-1 to end the season at home, you kind of don't deserve to be in the playoffs. Like it's easy to say, but like that's just the reality. Like you should be good at home and you should be fired up to come in front of your home crowd, because that home crowd, they were itching for a reason to be excited. They were itching for a reason to just explode the building. Okay? When the Red Wings came out against the Senators and fell in a 3-0 hole, they came up out of on a primetime game Saturday night, nationally televised, to come in 4-0 to Philadelphia. That's not even, you didn't even come to play, and that's the problem. They didn't come to play, and that speaks to a larger issue with the team. And I feel bad for guys like Larkin and Kopp who were hobbled to end the season, but they were just trying to get gutted out. And you would think that if you're a player like on the roster, you want to do better. And Patrick Kane said something about it. Like he said, when Larkin was out and Kopp was out, we kind of wanted to do it for them. Well, when they came back, you kind of just said, F it. They're back. We could just screw off again. And that's the problem with this team. And I think I don't think Yzerman can be happy about the way they lost. They missed the playoffs. I don't think anybody with a pulse could be happy with the way that they lost. They missed the playoffs. They would have missed the playoffs by 1 overtime. Okay, cool. They missed the playoffs because they just hung it up and they didn't show up to games. And like Babcock always used. I know Babcock's kind of a douche, but he always had this great line of, we didn't show up on time, when he was talking about teams that he had that didn't play up to their standard for the entire 60 minutes.
Yeah.
They didn't show up on time, and they actually showed up a little bit late. So it just
Right.
goes to show you. It just goes to show you, like, this speaks to a bigger issue in the room. It speaks to a bigger issue with the players. And Yzerman, I know he's going to make an example out of these players, because there is something that needs to be done to send a message. And I imagine he can hit up Jim Devellano or Scotty Bowman for advice, because this is not a easy issue. This is kind of a difficult issue to get around.
Well, and I think the other thing that Steve is struggling with is something that we've been struggling with for seasons and seasons and seasons now on this show. And that is, why is it that this team can go and have a banger road trip, come back home and drop the ball? How is that? Um, and Steve even said today, we don't know why. We don't know why that is, but we need to address that. And they were playing 600 hockey, and then in the last quarter, right in the stretch, in the push time, they're playing 400 hockey, and they had more or less home ice advantage. So that is completely the opposite of what it should be. They need to figure out what their other intrinsic issues are. I think their big focus needs to be their bottom six forwards. They've got to get a grind line together, and they have to get players. I don't think it's a matter of having the best players. Again, it's a matter of having the right players. And the right players for this team are going to be players who not only aren't going to fight getting physical, and I don't mean that like pun intended, that they're not going to be resistant to playing a physical game, but that's going to be their space. You got to find guys that's their space, and guys that are going to be unafraid. Back to my friend Robert, if you're afraid, call the police. Don't come crying to me. This team has to be fearless. And that is what they are lacking. And I think that's where Steve Yzerman's going to go with this. And with regards to your point, Joe, sending a message, I think he started that today, because if some simple little housewife politician out in the burbs can pick up on those things that Steve was laying out, you sure know that all of these hockey-minded folks are picking up on it too.
Yeah, and one of the quotes that he had, and he said, "We need better players. It's incumbent on me and my staff to improve the team." And he also said this, Cindy, and this goes to what we were saying. He says there needs to be some very blunt conversations with some of our players, and I could point those players out, but we all know who they are. And there does need to be conversations because, like, again, we go back to what Larkin said, do you play your role? If you're not going to score, what do you do? And that's the major $1 million question that a lot of these players have yet to answer. Like, that is the reality of the situation. So I can't sit here and, with the whole way that Yzerman did that press conference, I can't sit here and say that Yzerman was pushing the buck or wasn't trying to give you a little bit of what he was thinking. He was actually giving you a lot of what he was thinking. And if he was too honest, that could be problematic. You can't come out and say, yeah, this guy's a bum and this guy's a terrible player. He can't do that because of relationships with agents and all that jazz. There's a business side to it. But when he came out there and he was just like, yeah, this is crap. Like, this is not what we expect. And he said, there was a quote right here where he said, he says, all he said, we need to be harder to play against. If you can't do that, then I'll just ship you out. And that's kind of kind of what we're saying. Like, he's gonna
Oh
have to make some
yeah.
hard decisions this year, and it's not gonna be easy. But McClellan said it throughout the whole season. The just jerseys comment, we could play the clip, but we're not going to, of him saying, you know, we have guys that are skating around as just jerseys. And I think the worst thing a coach can say about a player is that you're a jersey. I think that's the worst comment you could ever get, because
Well, it means you got no heart, Joe. It means you
yeah,
got no heart, you got no commitment, you got no buy-in here, and that's the last thing you want out of a teammate or out of a roster player. I mean, these guys should be the epitome of professionalism and the epitome of the spirit and identity of that team, because those are your leaders, and those are the ones that's what's expected. And so when you don't perform up to expectations, when you don't even bring the character, and Steve Eiserman used that term today. He taught when talking about Marco Casper. Did Marco Casper perform quite to the level that they had hoped or expected this year? No, but he's a guy with a lot of character and determination. So again, it's those grit type elements that I think Steve Yzerman's looking for. That's what he appreciates about Marco Casper, because they can work with that. You know, I've often said, and I know other people that have been in charge of teams or whatever the case might be will probably agree with me. And that is, I have said, look, I'll take someone with a positive, willing spirit and attitude over someone highly proficient. Because you know what? I can work on proficiency. We can teach you what you need to know if you're willing to learn, willing to listen, and you got a good attitude. But it's really, really hard to change somebody's attitude. And if they got a crap attitude and their character is flawed, like fatally flawed sometimes, there is nothing you can do. It doesn't matter how good they are, quote unquote, good they are at what they do, because they'll turn it off and they'll turn it against you both. So you better be sure that you're surrounding yourself with a team of people with character and elements of determination, work ethic, all the things that are admirable, because you can work on everything else. And I think that's where Todd McClellan and the coaching staff comes in, is now getting these guys game ready and also getting them, you know, you got to get them battle ready. And that's where I think that's what falls on the coaching staff. Okay. And if I fault the coaching staff anywhere, and Steve did say unequivocally, there will be no changes in the coaching staff. So, and thank God for that, because I'll tell you, I think Todd McClellan is the answer for the Detroit Red Wings. I think his assistant coaches also have the right. I think he's got the right team of coaching there. Not so sure about a couple of other things, but I think the coaching staff is adequate. And Steve said they're not making any changes. But now it's incumbent upon that coaching staff to get these guys battle ready, to get them tough, to make sure they're prepared. For God's sake, make sure they're better physically conditioned so they're not getting hurt all the time at the wrong time. I think that's one thing this team can do, is they can be better physically conditioned. You know, one of my heroes, Hal Brooks, said, you know, we may not be the most talented team, but we will be the best conditioned team. And I think that the Red Wings should take a lesson from that.
There was also a comment from Johnny Wharton, who used to be the head trainer and head strength coach for the Detroit Red Wings, and he's a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. His name is actually on the cup. So he said today he liked what he heard from Steve Yzerman today. Extremely disappointed, quote unquote. Blunt conversations not going as planned, and much more. He sounded pissed off but measured. I know that Steve Yzerman will not shy away from the task at hand. That's a guy that knows Steve Yzerman. So there you go. There's a take. There you go. Because he's same thing. I think this whole thing, what I think about him being measured, he was totally measured, but he was pissed off. Don't get it confused. And Jeff Davis mentioned some players that could potentially be available: AJ Greer, Mason Marchment, Bobby McCann. Yeah, those would be 3 players who could potentially be on this roster and be better than the players that were on this roster, because AJ Greer plays a tough game. Mason Marchment plays a tough game. It's going to be interesting. But when you look down at statistics, Cindy, and we can grade these players, I mean, I think grading these guys, I think you would start out with Alex DeBrincat with 41 goals, 44 assists, 85 points. I think we could both give him an A. Am I wrong?
No, absolutely. Maybe I just go maybe a shade under. I mean, he had a great season. I'm gonna say maybe just an A minus. But I'm right there with you, because I think we can get more out of the cat. I think he's fantastic. I think him and Patrick Kane together is really the dynamic duo. I think that's the magic that makes it work. But I think so highly of Alex DeBrincat. I think he's got more in him. I'm gonna give him an A minus. Room for improvement for everybody.
Lucas Raymond, 80 games played, 25 goals, 51 assists. And, it was interesting in today's press conference. One of the things that Todd McClellan said he's going to have to get Lucas Raymond to really use is his effing shot, which is great. His shot is fantastic. And he had more assists than goals. And McClellan said something about that today, saying, look, he's kind of he likes to make people happy, but sometimes he's got to be selfish. And I think that's something that, Lucas Raymond's got to learn. But all in all, I'll give him an A minus, because he was nearly a point per game player. He rattled off at the end, but he had 5 game winning goals. He was fantastic. And, he was a +1 for the season, which isn't great, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm a little more maybe critical of Lucas Raymond maybe than most. I actually expected a little bit more out of him. Um, I think he's got a long ways to go too, and I understand he's wearing the A this year, along with Mo Sider, and maybe that's a little more added pressure, and maybe still trying to find his way and find his game and everything, and find his way in that role. Maybe that's the case. I give him a B.
Yeah, B is fair. It's a fair concept. Here's the one that I think is a unanimous A, and I wish his goals were a little bit more, but it is what it is. The big man, number 53, Mo Sider, 10 goals, 50 assists, 60 points on the season, plus 15, and he was just absolutely fantastic. And I don't think that I could sit here and say that when you're in a Norris Trophy can't legitimate talks, I can't say that you're not an A or an A plus. Like what a great season by Sider, and it's a shame that they didn't get to go to the playoffs because he was fantastic, and he really needed to be shown to the nation that he is one of the best defensemen in the NHL, in my opinion. Like he is one of the best, in my opinion.
Full disclosure, I love Mo. Loved him since he got into the league in terms of the potential that I saw. And here's why I'm going to agree with you on this one. Because Mo Sider was more than just above average, which is what your B score, your B grade is. He was exceptional. I think that Mo Sider performed up to, I think he probably exceeded expectations a bit, but now expectations are so high for him. But not only did he perform exceptionally well, above, way, way, way above average, he was an exceptional player on the ice, but I also feel that Mo Sider took on his new role um, exceptionally well, like a duck to water. I mean, this is a future Hall of Famer. I've said it from the get go. I am on that
Yes, you have.
100%. He is a future Hall of Famer. There is no doubt in my mind. And his work ethic is second to none. I agree with you, Joe. Not anything more I can say. I mean, I could sit here and talk another hour about Mo Sider and as much as I think of him. And absolutely, A.
Yeah, Mo Sider, that was absolutely an A. Dylan Larkin had he played 74 games, 34 goals. That was a career high, 33 assists, 67 points, a +3. I mean, to be honest, I'll give Dylan Larkin an A minus because he was really good. And even if you want to say he was a B plus, okay, I get that. Injuries obviously hampered him in the back end of the season, but for the most part, Larkin held up his end of the bargain. When you get 30 goals, I mean that's no small barometer. You had 30 goals from Larkin and DeBrincat, and again, no playoffs, and that's kind of an indictment on the bottom six. But it is what it is.
I think a B or B plus is a fair. I'd be willing to go up to a B plus on Larkin, but
9 game winning
honest,
goals is a big thing, though.
yeah. Well, and there you go, and there you go. So I think that you know, Dylan Larkin's got, again, he's got more ways to go. He's again, as the captain, is there a higher expectation? 100%. Of course there is. So I mean, it depends on where we put Dylan Larkin, right? If we take him in the perspective of just a regular player, yeah, I can go with a B plus, A minus, just because on a performance basis. But if you put him in the realm of other captains, I got to say he's a B. I think he's an above average captain, um, but I don't feel he's an exceptional captain yet. Yet.
And
I
and and Yzerman did speak about that. I just want to give you a
Yeah.
little bit of credit because Yzerman said he sees a little bit of him in Larkin with the
Yeah.
whole, learning how to be a captain. And that was an interesting comment from Stevie Y for sure.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, Dylan Larkin brings to this team something they desperately need more of, and that is he's a good two-way player and he's great 5-on-5. So they need more of that. And if they can cultivate or acquire some additional two-way 5-on-5 effectiveness players, and then have Dylan Larkin step it up just a half a step, I think you're going to see tremendous. I think the playoffs will be a reality.
And he didn't have the goals 5-on-5, but he did have the assists, which do measure up in terms of, with Lucas Raymond and
Yeah,
all those
points
guys. So that matters right there.
for points. Yeah,
People in the people will say that, you said that he's great 5-on-5 and that the goals he wasn't, but points overall he was a little bit.
that's right. Yep.
We look at Patrick Kane, 67 games played, 16 goals, 41 assists, and 57 points. There was times where Patrick Kane looked great, and at the end of the year he looked really good. I love Patrick Kane, and he's got to be back because I don't think you can replace this production easily. And I think him, DeBrincat, and Kopp actually did form a really good line, and that's all I could say about that. But Patrick Kane had 4 game-winning goals. He had 16 penalty minutes, and he was a -1. He's not a defensive player. He's not a two-way forward, but he does get you some points. So that does rail there. I'll give him a B.
Yeah, Patrick Kane's getting older. And again, perspective, right? Is he the player that he was? No. But is he an important part of this team? Yes. So, yeah, I would say that a B is a fair score for Patrick Kane. And here's the thing. I think he's necessary. He's the other half of the DeBrincat team, right? Him and DeBrincat. So I feel that Patrick Kane does fulfill a very important need in the Red Wings room, and with his veteran presence and what he can teach the younger guys coming up. I mean, the guy's a legend. Nobody can take that away from him, and that has an impact on the room, no doubt about it.
Yeah, Patrick Kane deserves his credit. He was one of the better players on this team, so that was easy to see. Andrew Kopp, obviously him and Larkin dealt with injuries last year. This is a Larkin game time decision, but Larkin and Kopp dealt with injuries last year. Kopp did man the middle of that line with DeBrincat and Kane, and as a result, he had 43 points, 9 goals, and 34 assists. So he didn't get the double-digit goals, but he probably would have if he would have stayed healthy. He played in 79 games, which is pretty freaking good. He played in more games than Patrick Kane, but just he's not your second line center. And for him playing out of sorts and playing out of position, in my opinion, it really was a good year for Andrew Kopp. And it's sad to say, but I mean, if Casper would step it up or someone else would step it up, but Stevie Wise did say center is going to be a position they look for in this offseason. So what grade would you give Andrew Kopp?
I think a B is a fair score for Kopp because, and I'll tell you, I probably would have gone like almost B minus because I think he's above average. I think he did above average, but and you pointed it out, Joe, is you can't take away from him that he was 1/3 of their top producing line this year.
Yep.
So,
Can't
so
take it away.
no. So I think he earns a B for that alone. And any other shortcomings or any other deficiencies that there were in his game, I think get mitigated by that. So I think B is a fair score for Andrew Kopp.
Yeah, B is a fair score, and I think that's a pretty good score for him because it wasn't his fault that this team just was absolute. Now we're gonna get to some of the defensemen. Justin Falk obviously came late, but he had 40 points on season, 16 goals, 24 assists. I think it's for him to be on the Red Wings that we can't really grade it, to be honest. Emmett Finney, 82 games played, 13 goals, 17 assists, 30 points, and for a 7th round pick and a rookie. Pretty good, Cindy. I gotta be honest. As a rookie, I give him an A. I really do. I think that he was legitimately one of the better players on this team. As sad as it is to say, other than the top 6, he was a guy that actually showed up and showed out, and was actually a player that had a little bit of heart on this team.
So here's the thing with Emmett Finney, right? He earned his spot, and Steve Yzerman said this. He earned his spot right out of camp, earned his roster spot, and then I think exceeded expectations. I think he rose to the occasion and exceeded expectations both, right? So He did what he had to do. I give him a B plus. I mean, I think he was above average for sure. And maybe you're right, Joe. Maybe he's actually deserving of an A when you consider all those other elements, right? But just overall, I think he's a B plus. Absolutely earned a B plus grade, regardless of his longevity in the NHL. I think he did very well. He was there in some real, he scored some clutch goals right when they needed him in some key games, and he did his part. I feel that he fulfilled the role as best as he possibly could this year, given his kind of lack of experience. And I think he did it by sheer will, to be honest. I mean, is he talented? 100%, absolutely. I was impressed with Emmett Finney. I was impressed, and I'm very eager to see what he brings in future seasons. I hope the Red Wings hold on to him a long time.
Yeah, because you know what was one of the funniest things about Emmett Finney? He finished third on the team in hits. So if he didn't score enough, he hit people. He had 131 hits, which was more than most Cider, amazingly. Marco Casper had 186, and Sherratt had 170. So there you go. Those are your top hitters, and just go to show you. I mean, Emmett Finney's done a damn good thing, and it's actually amazing. He was also a guy that drew penalties. This is a great stat for people that really want to know what Emmett Finney's value to the team is. He drew 42 minutes of penalties compared to 6 penalty minutes that he took, which is phenomenal from a rookie. You don't expect that. So good on Emmett Finney. We're gonna lump these players in together because I feel like they need to be lumped in together. JT Compher, 82 points, 11 assists, 17 assists, 11 goals, 28 points. I give it an F. Rasmussen, 6 goals, 8 assists, 14 points, F. Mason Appleton, 65 games, 6 points, 6 goals, 8 assists, and 14 points, F. And, as Rasmussen's a big guy, 64 hits. You know what's the sad part about that, Cindy? That was 10th on the team. That's pathetic for a guy like him. Mason Appleton 89, and again, I will go to JT Compher. 22 hits. 22 hits. Now, James Van Riemsdyk had 15, which he was another guy who just was. His goals were 15 goals, whatever, but still not. This is where we talk about softness on this team. This is where we talk about it right here. Compher, Rasmussen, Appleton. F, 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 F.
Pretty harsh, Joe. Pretty harsh. Um, eh, but I don't terribly disagree with you. I would have given them D's because they're below average. Every one of those guys did not perform to the level of expectation. Every one of them failed to perform up to what I believe their potential and what the expectation was. So certainly below average. Certainly below average. Are they completely irredeemable? I really don't know. I can't really say that they're irredeemable. Steve wasn't anxious to say that today, that, hey, there's absolutely some guys that are going to go and we're going to fill them with somebody else. I mean, he didn't say that, but what he did say is that there is going to be a lot of competition for those spots. And how I interpreted that when I translate it is that there are quite a few players, and I think you've named them, who are going to have to fight for their jobs. They're absolutely going to have to fight for their jobs. And that with all these young kids and all these prospects coming up out of Grand Rapids, especially when they're going to start showing what they can do in their postseason, in their playoffs, if you will, there's some guys that are really going to show you that they bring some real NHL possibilities that these other guys maybe have lost their way a little bit, lost their game, lost their identity, whatever their problem is. They certainly did not perform to the level of expectation, nor to what their past playing ability would indicate. So I say they're definitely in the D category. A couple of them complete failures.
Just give them F's.
You could be
F,
right. You could be
F
right.
across the board. F it.
I'm trying to be
That's-
diplomatic here and fair.
Now, a person that isn't going to get an F because he had a really good season and defensively was Mr. Simon Edmondson, 72 games played, 9 goals, 16 assists, 25 points. Not the points that you would expect, but a plus 12 on the season, which is actually pretty good. And Simon Edmondson was the fifth best, had the fifth most hits on the team with 94. And he was actually he was one of your better defensemen in terms of, he didn't give away the puck a lot. I mean, he actually did 61 giveaways. It's not really great. So, but that's lower than Cider, which Cider was great all year. But that was a great tandem. People were talking about, oh, we need to go trade for Quinn Hughes. Oh, we need to give up Simon Edmondson for Quinn Hughes. You know what? I'll say this, and I will be frank with you. This team does not need Quinn Hughes. The last thing they need is Quinn Hughes. This team needs to be tougher, and Quinn Hughes does not do that. And Simon Edmondson at least gives you that. You really need more toughness on this team, and you can't get rid of the toughness to get another, player that even in Vancouver media was like, look, the guy's great offensively, he's great, but his toughness is just not there. Like it really isn't. And that's the same with all the Hughes brothers, Jack Hughes, Luke Hughes, Quinn Hughes. They're not tough guys. They're just, I mean, Luke Hughes is a little tough, but Jack Hughes is not a tough guy, and he's a scorer, and they're offensive guys. So Edmondson gets a B plus for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I say Evanson is. I'll go with a B plus. I almost would have gone B, but I'd go B plus with you. Because of what he brought to that tandem, and you're right, Joe. You can't deny again the magic that happened when Edvinson and Sider got together, and I think part of the what makes a defenseman's season great, or what makes them great from terms of what they can accomplish, has a lot to do with who their D partner is. And so, and one thing that surprised me, we're talking about defense right now. One of the things that did surprise me that Steve said is he said that he was actually comfortable with his D core. He's good with his D core, and I found that to be an interesting statement for him to make. And I don't know if it's because, because we've been talking about the lack of defense for seasons now, and I'm not sure that he made any seismic shifts there. But here's the thing: I think that their offensive deficiencies and their forward group were so obvious, excessive. I don't know, so clear for everybody to see. Maybe that's overshadowing. But Steve says he's comfortable with the decor. So when we look to see where changes are going to be made and so on, I think we're going to see him certainly in that forward group. And as you pointed out earlier, in the center positions particularly. So so I can go with you on a B plus on Edvinson. I'll be honest, he outperformed what I expected. I've never been a huge fan of his. Sorry, Simon. Just because I saw him coming up as a young, arrogant punk kid and stuff like that. And I would like to see him use his size a little bit more. Again, kind of like Rasmussen, right? But I expect more from Ras because he's got more experience, and he's in a position that he should be more physical as a forward. So, but yeah, I can go with you on that. I can go with the B plus on Edvinson.
Yeah, and we'll finish up. Ben Sherratt, I mean, maybe a C plus. I mean, he did offer something physicality, but whatever. I mean, it is what it is. Just give it a quick C plus or whatever you want, Cindy.
I think I really like Ben Sherratt, by the way. And he's darn cute. But here's the thing.
God damn,
If
I
you
knew it was gonna
think,
go there.
get out of here. If you think for a minute
Oh
that,
man.
that we don't see these things coming
I was
now,
gonna
like,
whistle. I was trying to get you a quick one, and you're just like, hey, this guy is great.
hey, his wife just had a baby, so I'm not gonna. But anyway, or recently anyway. Um, I think Ben did okay. I think C plus is probably fair. I would have said probably C. I think he was average. I think he did his job. Do I think he was above average? No. Um, but I think he might be one of those guys that's kind of, I don't say 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but I think he's a little lukewarm on things in general. I don't think he was all jazzed about coming to Detroit in the first place, but he wanted to make the best of it. I think that he has been happier with being in Detroit, just all around, than he thought he was going to be. So maybe we're going to see more out of Sherratt. Maybe he'll fight for a spot. I don't know if he's at the end of his contract or if he's got a contract extension coming up or whatever.
He's got 1 more year on his contract, so
That's what I thought. So I think we're going to see probably a little bit better performance out of him next year, because it'll be, he'll be up for a contract renewal or extension, or trying to find another team or whatever. So I think you're going to see more out of Sherratt. I think this was kind of almost like his, I don't say a sophomore slump, because I think it was more deliberate than that. But I think he kind of laid back a little bit for whatever reason. And so I think just from an effort perspective, I think Sherratt is capable of more. It's just a matter of if he's going to put in the effort. So I would say CC plus, yeah.
that's good. That's a good one right there. And lastly, we'll get to the goalies. I think John Gibson was an A. 272 goals against average, 901 save percentage. I think at the end of the year, he got taxed because he played 57 games, which is incredible. Cam Talbot played 34 games and gave up 3.19 goals against, 883 save percentage. And yeah, it wasn't great for Cam Talbot, but you know what? Talbot's like 40 years old. And so this is probably his last hurrah with the Detroit Red Wings. So
Oh my God, he's 40 years old. He's on death's door, for heaven's sakes. I got like a dozen years on that guy, but I'm not a hockey player. So
not a goalie either. That's the thing.
that's right. That's right. And you can speak to that far more than I can, being a former
Very
goalie
taxing
yourself.
position. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing with Gibson, right? I think you're right. I think Gibson played exceptionally well. I just think he was overplayed. I think he was
Yes.
overplayed.
Yes.
That's all it was. And I think if he would have been able to if they could right size the amount of play time that in a number of games that he's responsible for, I think he could have sustained it. You know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
and so I give him an A as well. And I look forward to another season of John Gibson, and really I'm looking forward to him getting um, supporting some other supporting goalies who can maybe take some of that pressure off of him and give him the opportunity to have another banner year.
His goal saved over expected was 11.7, which is absolutely like unbelievable. Because when you think about the best players in the league, in terms of their goals played, saved over expected, even with how bad of a season that he had at the end of the season, he still finished 12th. I mean, that's pretty freaking good. And I mean, there's players ahead of him like Sorokin, Swayman, Thompson, Vasilevsky, Wedgwood, Sturkin, Vladar. Crazy enough, Alex Lyon, in 36 games, not even close to what. But if you go to 40 games, again, this guy, Mr. Alex Lyon, was top 10. So good year for Alex Lyon. And I think he was I mean, for John Gibson, it was an A for sure. Alex Lyon had a good year though for Buffalo, and he's playing pretty well with Buffalo. So you just think about if he was a backup goalie of Detroit, how different it would be, because Cam Talbot was 11 point, I think it was 11.3. It was not great. Where was it? He was negative 13.1, which was the sixth worst goalie in goals saved over expected. So that's not great right there for Cam Talbot. But you got to think next year, Cindy, Costa could be up, or this kid Pastavia, who they got from the Czech Republic, who looks like he could be really, really good. He could potentially be the goalie to back up John Gibson, or maybe start over John Gibson. You never know. With the way that goalies kind of develop, it's kind of a weird up-down theory kind of thing. So we'll see what they do at the goalie position. They have a good stable of goalies in the AHL and the minor leagues with Trey Augustine and Kosa and Pastavia and Gylander. Like this, they're loaded for bear. They can literally trade one of these goalies for a player, to be honest, because every team needs a goalie, and these goalies are pretty damn good. But
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we did this grading because I think if nothing else, it may point out, and maybe people agree with us, maybe they don't, they say throw them all out, whatever. But here's the thing is I think we've highlighted some that I believe that the Detroit Red Wings have the right core. They just have to build it out, right? And so there's definitely some bright spots here, and there's definitely some reasons to hope for the future. And with regards to the upcoming goalies, as you pointed out, Steve Yzerman had an interesting answer for that as well when asked about, bringing up some of these guys, and he said, you know, I mean, he was very definitive. He's like, I want to see how they do in GR. And I think what he's saying, again, if I'm translating and speaking Steve, I would say, I'm waiting to see how these guys handle pressure. I'm
Yes.
waiting to see
Yeah.
how these guys can handle being the guy, in a playoff situation, in a championship situation. And that is going to tell him a lot. And so I think he's waiting to see how they're going to handle the pressure. And then I think that will, and again, they're going to have to earn it. They're going to have to earn the spot at camp. But I think that's what Steve meant by that.
I thought it was hilarious because that brings up a good story about when Scotty Bowman was when he went to I think it was for Pittsburgh. He went to the backup goaltenders. I think it was his state championship game or whatever when he was in Pittsburgh. And like the goalie said he almost shit his pants because Scotty Bowman was there and he just went and Scotty said if he can't handle this pressure, he can't be on the Penguins. So
Right.
I thought that was pretty funny. All right. Well, this was a good podcast. Going forward to the people that listen to the podcast, we'll be doing episodes realistically. We'll be doing some episodes, but we're not going to do like this whole week in and week out. We might do 2 weeks or whatever and recap or something. I might do podcasts with some people, or I might just do one that where I geek out. But this was a good podcast. Unfortunately, we're not in the playoffs, which I was hoping for. But yes, this has been a disappointing year, but for us, it's been a good year. So thanks
hey,
to
Joe,
all that listen.
I'm glad that you said that. And if I can just kind of close out today myself or my own comments, and that is that even though we won't be as regularly here on the podcast, this is why you need to like, subscribe, hit the notification button, because you're going to want to be notified, because when we do have episodes that come out, they're going to be humdingers. They're going to be ones you don't want to miss. We might have special guests. We might have some really exciting stuff to share with you, because as you know, and I've said this since we started, when I get information from some of my best sources, you guys are the first ones to hear it. So there's a lot that's going to happen behind the scenes in this off season, in this postseason and off season. And if I get any inkling of it, I'm going to pass it on to you. So you want to be the first ones to hear it. And so please like, subscribe, tell your friends. And I recommend that you definitely turn on your notifications, because you don't want to miss one more episode of the Red Alert podcast.
And listen, if we're gonna keep the YouTube active, because we're gonna be growing that YouTube, and we want to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the off season. So we're gonna be doing some stuff to gain subscribers in the YouTube category, so we can build on that. And then when we get to the regular season, it's gonna be a whole different ball game. So thank you to everyone who listens. I know there's people in the podcast that don't know we have a YouTube page, but we do. I need to put it out there more that we have a YouTube page, because there are a lot of people have been asking, and I said, all right, we're gonna make it a standalone YouTube page for just Red Wings content. We have
And you put a
Alliance.
lot of great stuff out there, Joe. That's the other thing. People got to know you are one of the best. You get some of the best clips. You put the best bumper music in. Our content on YouTube, our video content, is some of the best moments of Red Wings hockey, not only this past season, but in seasons before that. And Joe's one of the best. So you don't want to miss any of it. Subscribe on our YouTube channel to see it all.
And we're going to give you more information about how this is going to work. But we have the JC Sports Detroit YouTube page. We have the Lions podcast page. We're going to tie all the content together and basically make it to where it's like one giant hub of content. So if you're a Red Wings fan, you got a place to go. If you're a Lions fan, you got a place to go. If you're a Tigers, Pistons, Michigan State, you got a place to go with Jason Sports Detroit, and there'll be some Red Wings and Lions on there. But that's just the way it's going to go. So we are going to figure it all out. We kind of did this mid-season where we started the new YouTube page, which was interesting. But we will get. There'll be a lot of content going on there for the foreseeable over the off season in terms of just basic stuff that you're going to see going through certain kind of. We're going to have great. We'll put you in. We'll keep you in tune with that. So, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening the entire season. And for me and Cindy, thank you to all that were watching. And we'll see you next time on the Red Alert Podcast.
See you then.